spring games, and I dealt with a lot of people offering our players a lot of opportunities after that. So the word tampering doesn't exist anymore.
It comes off as just crying and whining from him. I just can't accept it. Pat McAfee is the face of football at this point. So when Matt Rule, someone who has outwardly spoken about NIL and the transfer portal, both of its positives and negatives, come on the show, you got to go back and review the tape. So that's what we're going to do. Listen to Matt Rule talk about NIL, how it affects modern college football, the transfer portal, as well as have some tape and some facts to back it up. We have some reports that Nebraska was one of the highest spenders in the 2025 class, to see if we can validate that. We do have Nebraska running away with an elite transfer portal class that we're going to review and talk about. So lots to get into here, man. We're going to start with Pat McAfee and Matt Rule. I kind of getting after a few minutes there, then hear into these rumors, and then go from there, man. If you like these videos, NIL coverage, transfer portal of footballs, for transfer portal coverage on college football, Lord have mercy. Like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't like it, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and let's get right into it.
You've been in a long time, but I'm getting like baptized in college football. I obviously followed college football and like knew what teams were good and everything like that. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, so like I didn't fully understand college football as a whole. And then now we're in this massive transition era. So this press conference that you had just a couple weeks ago was like very eye-opening, I think, for me and a lot of people about the state of college football. Here's you looking incredibly handsome, by the way, from a few weeks ago.
Make no mistake that a good quarterback in the portal costs $1 million to $1.5 million to $2 million right now. So just on the same page, right? So let's make sure we all understand what's happening. So there's some teams that have $6 or $7 million players playing for them.
My favorite line in there, not only the information, because that was certainly information I think a lot of people were excited to learn because we hear the chatter, but basically when you say, so that's what, just so we know, like that is what life is. It was almost like you were explaining to people like, hey, this is what college football is right now. That really needed to be said. Thankful for that. Is there like just a slotted amount seemingly already made for different positions? And is there like, is there somebody that manages the amount of money that you, like how, it's professional, right? This is like professional ball all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, and I took, some people were not happy with me. I've had some other college coaches kind of get on me and say, Matt, you reset the market. But I do think it's important that people know, right? Because what I'm afraid of is, and like you said, I went to the NFL. I don't care. I'm going to say what I think is right. And when people like it, they like it. They don't like it, they don't like it. Like I'm going to say what's happening. And at the end of the day, there are no contracts. And Charlie Baker from the NCAA is trying to make it where the college is like, we can't even have the conversation with the players about the money. So now you have all throughout college football, you have players getting agents. Sometimes they're great agents, NFL agents. Sometimes they're not certified. There's no like NFLPA regulating it. They're dealing with third parties for each school. Each school has a different amount. And there's no system to it. I had an NFL GM text me this week. And he was like, bro, how come you guys don't just make it binding? How come you guys, I said, we can't even have a conversation or else we get in trouble. So it's them dealing with a third party. They can tell a kid, hey, you're going to get $1 million. And then you can transfer from Nebraska, go somewhere else. And then they say, hey, you know what? We don't have that money anymore. And oh, by the way, once you transfer, you're stuck at the second school. So you actually get penalized. Like you get penalized for recruiting a kid out of high school. He can leave for more money somewhere else. But if he goes somewhere else, he's stuck there till he graduates. So there is no system, and I think it's important that people know that. Because you know what, some good coaches are losing their jobs, and some good programs are they're building players up, and then players are leaving. And I'm all for players. Let me just say this: I'm all for players making money.
Absolutely.
I'm all for NIL. I just don't think people should be walking into your program and offering a player on your roster money like that would never happen in the NFL. Like, you got to trade it. You have rules.
There's conversations that have to, like, there's a little bit of like some morality to this entire thing.
Yeah, and so I worry about the players. I mean, some players are going to get a lot, but a lot of players are going to enter the portal and end up with nothing. A lot of players are going to be told they're getting X, Y, and Z and get nothing. And at the end of the day, not everyone goes to the NFL. So I think we have to have the conversation about it. We have to talk about it, and not talk about it to get rid of it. Just, man, like make it competitive and make it real.
Yeah, and the issue is it would have to be collectively bargained, is what everybody says. So who becomes the players' union? Who represents them? Because those people have to be good. But what really legitimately sound person that is a good business person wants to take that job instead of what they're currently doing? Like it's almost seemingly looking ahead. I've thought about this a lot too, because I feel like NIL deals are a lot in the world that we live in. And like, I'm a former player who has always been like, hey, Pat White deserved to get paid whenever he was at West Virginia. Steve Slayton deserved to get paid whenever he was at West Virginia. I watched a couple guys build up an entire campus, like change an entire university over a 4-year run pretty much, and they didn't see any of it. And it was like, so I've been pretty wide open about it, but it's like to sign up and do that would be a tall or an impossible task almost. It's like,
Yeah, and obviously that's the issue that we're facing right now is that obviously the NCAA cannot enforce anything. Even the things that they try to give guidance about, it just follows through. You have things like the Xavier Lucas story, because Matt Rule was kind of talking about people transferring and not getting money, but you have Xavier Lucas who transferred without even entering the transfer portal after signing his NIL rights to Wisconsin. Then you have more in line of what he's talking about, the Matthews Lucas situation, right, where he had money that was supposed to be paid to him. You have what's it called, the I know this is basketball, but the Florida State, that there was a huge lawsuit about they're getting unpaid wages. Last Chance U, we just did a video on them. Those group of people from EMCC are suing Netflix in the situation. So it's a lot of a lot of fallout from the things that have happened, especially when you talk about the NIL proceedings, the transfer portal rulings, and the way that the NCAA kind of operates within it. I really agree with I really agree with Matt Rule on a lot of things, and I think it's because because I'm not a big Matt Rule guy, but I think it comes down to people being NFL guys. You've heard Deion Sanders, Bill Belichick, and now Matt Rule talk about the transfer portal all in the same way, and they don't talk about it with like these kid gloves like it felt like Nick Saban did, right? Now give Lane Kiffin his respect, he does as well, but it comes off as just crying and whining from him. I just can't accept it. But on the inverse of that, I think that what you see is that those NFL players take a lot of advantage of that. So here is 93.7 the ticket. I believe a local Nebraska situation kind of talking about was Nebraska one of the biggest spenders in NIL in 2025? Let's check it out.
The anonymous NIL collective, I don't know, I'm reading it here. Personnel staffers say Auburn, Nebraska, Ohio State, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M spent the most in the recruiting of the 2025 recruiting classes. Now, it doesn't say whether it's the portal and high school, or it's just high school, or one or the other. But ultimately, it bodes well for Nebraska when you're thinking about being able to get back into relevancy is and obviously you make a bowl game that makes it a little bit easier. And you gotta when you get big time recruits like we were able to get Dylan Raiola last year, they don't come for free. And so got some pretty good dudes with Merritt, and obviously you got Jones and some other guys that are coming as high school kids. And so, we had Mims. I think we flipped him from another school. So, I just think of when I'm looking at this right now and reading it, I think it's, one of those things that, bodes well for Nebraska and the fan base, so where you can't say, I think maybe you could have probably said prior, Nebraska could have spent more, but I think that, Nebraska probably fell victim of trying to do everything in the right way. And remember when Texas A&M had that number one recruiting class and they were like 7-6 and they spent, I think at that time, 30 million. Then none of the guys even there. They're all over across the nation. We even have one, Elijah Judy, and then
it can get real nasty. It can get real nasty. So those are the supposed numbers. Now I do want to clarify and say, this is just hearsay and numbers, right? Now this is per NIL NCAA. These were the biggest Big Ten NIL collective funding rankings, and Nebraska is at number 11 with 7.9. With Ohio State being number 1 at 20.2, Michigan at 16.3, Penn State at 13.7. Now, how much does that change? How much does the 2025 class change? I don't know, because they were hauling them in. Like I showed you or watching the video, right now Matt Rule and Nebraska have put together the number 1 transfer portal class in the Big Ten and number 5 nationally. So that is no small thing and no pecking order. And these are some big-time players fulfilling some needs that if you're a Nebraska fan, I know you're happy about. I mean, interior offensive lineman from Notre Dame coming in. Obviously, you're still losing people to, you got to do what you got to do, how you got to do it. right? You're getting people from Oklahoma, you got Alabama offensive tackles, right? So, and I think that's a big thing because from the football that I watched of Nebraska, it seemed like the only real issue was the offense and more importantly, the offensive line and just getting consistency. I don't think Dylan Raiola is a bad quarterback. I just don't think that he had enough time back there, the true freshman, to really, get confidence, right? It's not just about, oh, when you have a clean pocket, take advantage of it. It's about how are you going to give that player more clean pockets, right? And more advantages, opportunities, and avenues to make sure they can execute. But you got people from Kentucky, players from Cal, wide receivers. I mean, like this is a long list. It's a long little laundry list of players coming in. Obviously, you have the people coming out as well. So, and that's you're just gonna deal with that as a team, right? You're just gonna deal with people leaving and coming back. Right. And then more notoriously, I think that it's interesting that with all this dominance, you still see Matt Rule saying things like he doesn't want to have a spring game. We've talked about this. I'll let the quick clip play again.
But I'll be honest with you, I highly doubt it. And I think it's really fundamentally, I hate to say it like this, it's really because, last year we're one of the more televised, we were one of the more televised spring games, and I dealt with a lot of people offering our players a lot of opportunities after that. So to go out and bring in a bunch of new players and then showcase them for all the other schools to watch, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The word tampering doesn't exist anymore. It's just absolute free, open, common market. And so I don't necessarily want to open up to the outside world. I don't want these guys all being able to watch our guys and say, wow, he looks like a pretty good player. Let's go get him. So, but I don't know yet. I don't know anything. I thought it was important that, we at least.
And, even bringing the question and begging the question, I think even, has a bigger reflection on the change that college football is going to have and it's going to continue to have. Look, this is where we are. Like the Pandora's box has been opened. We are here. We are at the moment in situation where, the money is flowing and it's flowing at an all-time, a large level right now that I think that, I don't know, it's hard to really separate and hard to really, I want to say not denotate, but it's hard to see where the cap goes. It's hard to look on the horizon with so many sweeping different changes and different announcements and situations happening like that, right? I just feel like it's a crazy world and a crazy situation in the world of NIL. So give respect to Matt Rule. I don't like the whole spring game cancellation game. I feel like, hey, man, this is the modern world, and you got to be able to know how to handle that because the spring game also does great things to the morale of not only your team, but the morale of the the school, right? The spring game, if in colleges, that's more so for the community and less so for the actual spring game and for them to really get to see the looks. You see what you need to see in spring practice, right? So I would hate for something, and one of the reasons and one of the great reasons why we love college football so much, that connection, the fans, them loving it, and them being so dominant, I would and being so present, I would hate to see that start dwindling in even small fashions like that. But hey, man, we'll see. I appreciate Matt Rule sharing his word. I appreciate Pat McAfee and the show and the boys for doing that. Please don't snipe my channel. Again, I add substance every single time I do these types of videos, but I appreciate y'all for watching these videos. Leave a like if you like it, dislike if you don't like it, subscribe if you enjoy college football content, coverage, transfer portal stuff, everything else in between, man. We'll see you next time.